Well, hello, welcome back to Tale 3 Cabins. If you've watched our channel before, you know that we purchased an RV and we picked it up in early March and we took it on its maiden voyage in April. Most folks say when you're taking your first trip in an RV that you should go short, go nearby, close to home, just in case there's any issues. But we took it on an 1,800-mile jaunt and we went out to the Outer Banks and we had a few little things that we had to work out, but for the most part everything went great. We got to experience a couple RV parks. We experienced a state RV park, mooch docking, and boondocking all on the same trip. So we kind of got everything ironed out. We haven't taken it on any little short weekends or anything like that. We're kind of on the philosophy that if we're going to take this thing out, we're going to go big or go home. Well, we're 2 weeks counting down right now, T-minus 2 weeks before we leave on our next trip. And it's going to be around a 5,000 to 6,000 mile journey. So it's going to be definitely longer than our first one. And it's going to involve a lot more factors. It's going to be somewhere around the 40-day mark that we're going to be away. So give or take 40 days. We're not exactly sure how it's all going to play out. We've got a schedule when we first start, and then once we get around the 25 to 30-day mark, that's where we're going to be improvising, see if we want to stay out longer, if we want to start heading home. Just depends on the weather and stuff like that. So I just want to talk today a little bit about the preparation. Right now, like I said, we have 2 weeks to go, and I would love to start filling this thing up and getting ready. I'm thinking in the back of my mind, what do we need? Karen is making little mental notes and lists, writing things down on paper so we try not to forget anything. It would be great to start loading the refrigerator and packing this thing full of food and feel like we're getting ready to finally leave, because we've been planning this now probably since late May, and we decided we were going to go out west. We knew that was going to be one of our early trips with the RV, and it's probably going to be a couple times going out west. This will be our first time, and there are definitely a lot of factors to consider when you're going to be going out west. We're almost going to be doing half and half, where we'll be in an RV park or state park or maybe even a national park campground, and then we'll be some places where we're just going to dry camp, public land, stuff like that. It's almost going to be a 50-50 split. There's a lot of things for us to consider. We're going to take Willow with us. That's probably one of the biggest things to consider, especially being still late summer. I've been checking the weather forecast almost daily on all the areas that we're going to go visit, and the temps in some of those areas are still around 100, 90-degree highs. It usually cools down somewhat at night, but not that much. If we are dry camping a lot, we want to take some provisions that you probably don't need when you're going to a regular RV park, and one of those would be a generator. And I did a little video earlier in the year on a generator that would be able to power this complete RV without any modifications. Just plug it in and it would be like we were hooked up to a 30 amp service. So we can run our air conditioner and do all the amenities that this RV has without any hindrance. Of course, now that you've got the generator, you're going to have to carry fuel with you. So I'm going to be bringing a 5-gallon gas can. I don't want to fill it fully to the top because of gasoline expanding and contracting with elevation changes and also temperature changes. So I'm only going to put about 3.5 gallons in there and have a little bit of fuel in the generator tank itself. When we go to Tennessee, I used to always bring power tools, chainsaw, weed whackers, hedge trimmers, and take those down there to do maintenance around the cabin in Tennessee. And everything always got like a little bit of odor of gasoline, especially if we were trying to like bring new linens down or something like that. So I'm not a big fan of transporting gasoline in the back of my pickup truck, but in this instance, I really don't have a choice. We'll just be choosy about what we're going to throw in the back there and store things that, if it does have an odor back there, that it's not going to harm anything. Another thing for us to consider is solar panels. We have solar panels on the roof, and I also bought some spare solar panels to plug in to the side of the RV. So we'll be using those when we're dry camping in certain areas, and we want to stay in the shade, but we can put the panels out in the sun to recharge our battery. And hopefully those will be days where we don't need the generator and we could just survive off our batteries for a couple days. Extra water, we'll be taking extra water, so that's something you don't normally consider when you go to an RV park or a campground. So I mentioned we started planning this trip in May. I started planning our trip on an app called RV Parky, and it's pretty much accessible via website and they do have an app for your phone or your iPad. Pretty simple. You basically need to know where you're going though, and then you pick out those locations, and those are kind of like our anchor locations. So we started plugging in the attractions that we wanted to go see. Certain national parks out west, Mount Rushmore, Devil's Tower, Yellowstone. We put all those anchor points in, and then you have an option of where are you going to stay when you're near those areas. So then you can plug those things in. And what RV Parky does is it'll figure out the mileage in between your stops. It'll add up all your stops, figures out the mileage. You put how many days you want to stay, so it puts in the calendar where you're going to be at a certain time. And it worked out fairly nice. I like the app. One thing I will say, it has a print feature, and I would recommend either printing it off or printing it to PDF so you can refer to it on your computer or your device. And that way, if you do make changes, and if something were to happen with the app that maybe your changes didn't take, or you thought you lost something, you can go back and refer to the hard copy on a PDF or piece of paper. I put in there little notes. There's an area for notes for each one of your stops. So every time we made a reservation somewhere with a campground, I copy and pasted all that information, the address, the days we're staying, the site location and site number, stuff like that. So RV Parky was pretty nice. And then our other concern was there's going to be a couple times in our trip where we're going to be looking for a dump station, and we might actually be like 6 days between places that we're going to have full hookups. So we're going to probably need to dump somewhere. So I have another app that I've been using called RV Dump that gives me an idea of places nearby we're going to be staying. Where we're in transit, we can stop and unload our tanks. We'll see how that stuff works out. So this is really going to be a big change from when we went out to Outer Banks compared to going out west. And it's just, you have to be prepared with a lot of things. As I mentioned, a generator, the solar panels. Another thing is a road atlas we're going to bring, because our phones may not be reliable, and there's going to be many, many times when we're out of cell phone reception. So having a paper road atlas with some of your route in there already worked out is very helpful. I'm going to try to bring a cell phone booster from our cabin in southern Ohio and see if that helps out any, just to play around with that while we're out and about and hooked up in different areas. Security, like hitch locks. We purchased a hitch lock. That's something that, on our last trip we didn't even consider, but we are probably going to be leaving our truck in public lands and going exploring, and we want to be able to just have a little security. We don't expect to have any issues or anything like that, but we thought we should put a lock on our hitch just in case. You never know. And we're also going to experiment with a product called a Gecko, and I'm hoping it's going to come in just before we leave. I just talked with the manufacturer not that long ago, and he says that we should be able to get it before we take off, and it's going to come just really, really close from the day we depart. And a Gecko is a device that is really specific to hybrid campers and pop-up campers that have the bump outs, the canvas bump outs on the side. And I'm looking forward to test this out, because it's going to be perfect conditions where we're going to have some really, really warm weather, and we could have some really, really cold weather. So we're going to put this thing through the ringer. I'll probably do a separate video on that, so keep an eye out for it. I know there's a lot of interest on some of the forums for these type of campers to give you a little bit more protection, soundproof and weatherproof, and a little bit more insulation, and we're going to give it a try, and I think it's going to work out good, but we'll see. So we've done quite a bit of preparation leading up to this on the trailer itself. We've added a few things. We've added places to hang and for storage. We added a little knife rack over here, some additional outlets that we could take advantage of. Just been tweaking the trailer. We did buy this map of the United States, and as we tick off places where our RV's been, we'll be filling those in one at a time. We've already got maybe about 5 or 6 states under our belt, and we're going to hit quite a few more on this trip. So we got to figure out a place to mount that. So in this video, we'll take care of some of that prep work I talked about and hitching up and starting on our journey. So stick around. After our Outer Banks journey, we decided that we wanted to improve the mattress a little bit. So we ended up getting a 3-inch like foam padding for the top, so we could still use the heated function of the mattress. Bringing hiking boots, regular walking shoes, slippers, we wanted to keep those out of the way, so we put this little shoe rack up there. I also wanted to add a small shelf to put our phone on at night when we have the bed open. So this is something that I can remove when we're driving down the road and we're packing up, and it's easy just to put right back in when we're setting up our bunks. We're undoubtedly going to run into a lot of bugs on our 6,000 mile journey, and I thought it'd be easier to clean them off if I put 2 coats of wax on top of the truck.
Just finishing up the second coat now. Now, Biff, don't con me.
Actually, just 1 coat. In addition to the coat of wax, I also put a layer of Rain-X on the windshield. We got 2 days before we depart, and we just ran to the grocery store to buy some last minute items, and we put about a week's worth of groceries in there, meals that are simple to make and quick and easy and don't create a lot of dirty dishes. We're hoping to eat out occasionally, but we know that it'll be scarce, especially when we're out west in the Badlands area. From experience, I can tell you that we usually use about 25 to 30% of our battery overnight, and the solar panels are doing quite well on the roof that it came with to recharge that battery in the daytime. But we're not going to be guaranteed sunshine. We might be in the shade, so I wanted to bring these extra solar panels with us in case. In addition to the gasoline for the generator, it also runs on propane, and we have that with the RV, so that'll be a nice little backup. I'm also bringing this red bucket just in case we fill our black tank. No, actually just in case we need it for who knows what. Various tools in here. I might go over those in a future video when we're set up at a campsite. Again, this is various tools. This has to do with electronics, and it's a small tool bag. We have a cooler when we're going a long distance to a grocery store and we want to keep things cool, and of course a lot of extra water. The packing went quite well for us. It's just the 2 of us, and there's quite a bit of room in there, and I know I probably forgot some necessities. I can tell you right off the bat, now that we're into this a little bit, it would have been nice to have maybe a small shovel and a hatchet, in no particular order. 1 day to go, we're filling up the fridge. We turned it on yesterday, but it does cool pretty quickly. We probably just needed a couple hours for it to cool off. I really like the 12-volt fridge as long as you have a way of keeping your batteries up. Some last minute items. I have the rear backup camera on the back of the trailer, and I use that kind of as my right passenger side mirror when I'm changing lanes to the right. And then we also have the tire pressure monitoring system. Alright, it is the morning of. Just one quick check, walk around, make sure everything is good. Karen double checks for me, and occasionally she'll find something. Everything's functioning good, camera is on, got a good view of the back, and let's get this show on the road. right, it's a little bit breezy here, but we made it from northern Ohio to South Dakota, about 1,000 miles in our journey so far, just the first leg. And I appreciate everybody watching these videos. Next week we're probably going to have a tractor video, a little project video, and then we'll pick back up maybe with our trip. I got to do a little product test for a company on those geckos. I'm going to try to work that out. I'm in a perfect location for it right now because we're going to have some pretty warm temperatures and some cold temperatures. Plus we have the sun beating down on us, so that's a great time to do that project. Couldn't ask for a better view over here. Really enjoying our little trip so far. I appreciate everybody watching. Hope you enjoy and subscribe to these videos. Click on that little bell when you want to know when a new one is coming out. And keep an eye on us. And hopefully the wind will die down a little bit.